Hey everybody, it's Boardman21 and today's build is going to be a full out all lightning damage shaman. Basically we've turned him into Thor. We're just going to have lightning raining down. We tried it a bunch of different ways. We just wanted to see if a full on lightning build is actually doable, and if it's built around Storm Totem, how well we could get Storm Totem to actually do damage. Now, while the build itself is not going to throw out any OP numbers, some lightning strikes that you cast can do 2 or 3,000 damage on crits, which is actually decent damage and it has some good clear speeds. I would say that this is kind of equally good in both the Monolith of Fate as well as the Arena, although you're not going to push more than a couple hundred waves with it. And in the Monolith, you do have to kind of time the Storm Totem a little bit better because you want to use it more on the rares. You're not going to have it on instacast like you can do in the arena, because in the arena you can just put it in the middle of the map, and then as mobs start to close in, it'll just hit all of them. In the monolith, you'll kind of leave it behind you. Now, we did run a few different ways on this, but what we have here is what we ended up doing, and it's more of a speed run clear than it is a get in the fight. Although if you want to drop Ice Thorns because it doesn't have any lightning on it, you can use Tempest Strike, which does a bunch of lightning, and you can get it to proc Storm Totem for you. You can use Swipe with the Swipe Lightning on hit, which happens once every 3 seconds unless you take the cooldown nodes, but I don't think you can get it more than once every 1 second. If you do use a melee skill like those two, the problem is the survivability on the Shaman in the fight is pretty low, and on top of that, you can then switch the passive tree around to get Lightning to auto cast not only on spell cast, but you'll have a 40% chance on melee hits as well, which will do a little bit more lightning. Alright, now with this, let's go ahead and get into the skills. For skills, we're going to be running the Summon Storm Totem, Tornado, Maelstrom, Ice Thorns, and Summon Thorn Totem. For Summon Storm Totem, we're going to have 4 points in Lightning Radar to increase that cast speed astronomically, 3 points in Direct Current to give it a good base crit chance, and 3 points in Power Shunt for that 90% critical multiplier. Another 5 points in Storm's Reach to make it affect basically your whole screen, 4 points in Intensity to unlock the 1 point in Thunder Totem. Since this isn't a super mana intensive build, you can run the Thunder Totem chance, which will increase the cost up to 45 mana, which is pretty big cost, but like I said, this isn't a huge mana intensive build, so you can get away with it here. The other way we do try, if you don't go for the thunder and you want to save these 5 points, you can get the 45% increased lightning damage and the movement speed up to the top left. For Tornado, we're using this for the lightning and the mana regen. We have 1 point in Charged Storm, so that will cast lightning every 2 seconds. 4 points in Frequent Lightning to increase that frequency by 140%, which puts you under 1 second. And 1 point in Overcast Skies for that lightning range. 1 point in Aspect of the Storm, with 4 points in Gust of Renewal for that mana regen and mana efficiency. 3 points in Lasting Storm, 4 points in Hurricane, 1 point in Eye of the Storm, and 1 point in Snapgale to make it into an instacast, because as a dodge build, you're basically going to want to keep running around and not have to keep stutter stepping trying to cast everything. For Maelstrom, it's also going to be an instacast and it's going to have its lightning. It's also going to be a big source of your dodge. We have 3 points in Turmoil, 3 points in Whirlpool, 1 point in Power of the Storm. You don't need any points in Strong Tides to make the stacks be less in order to cast the lightning, because you'll always have 6 or 7 stacks because it's an instacast and you'll never run out of mana. So just the 1 point in Power of the Storm and 3 points in Energize to have additional targets is all you need. 3 points in Sleep Footed for that dodge rating per stack, 4 points in Calm for the mana efficiency, 2 points in Arctic Blast, and the 1 point in Sudden Gale to turn it into the instacast. For Ice Thorns, there's a bunch of different ways you could run this, but we wanted to cast it as much as possible so that it could proc the lightning on spellcast, and for that we put 3 points in Anemophily, 1 point in Thorn Shield, 4 points on Bulb Shield for the auto recast, 40% chance, 1 point in Second Nature with maximum cooldown, 6 points in Floric Tides, 1 point in Emblem of Might to make it free since we're using a two-hander, 2 points in Frost Root Storm for the extra projectiles, and 1 point in Ritual Briar for the increased hit damage, and 1 point in Thaw to convert all cold damage to physical damage. Now, since we're not doing a whole lot of cold damage, the reason we converted it into all physical damage was because we are leeching physical damage, and so this will help regen your life. And then for Thorn Totem, we have 3 points in Forested Expanse, 3 points in Eternal Forest, 1 point in Groove Mind, and then we went a little bit different. Usually we take either the Poison Clouds or the frozen pools on the ground. Instead, we went with 3 points in Turret of the Thorns for extra projectiles, and then we went for a bunch of cast speed and damage. So 1 point in Ancient Power, 3 points in Impale, 2 points in Shred Armor, 3 points in Winged Thorns, and 1 point in Frenetic Attunement. The 3 points for that double, sometimes your Thorns without critting can hit for 200 or 300 damage each, which is pretty big damage. They help clear a lot of mobs, and especially trash mobs, off the screen extremely quickly. Now, things that you can do, the reason we have Thorn Totem, because it's neither lightning nor cold for us, is because the 5 Thorn Totems that you can get almost 100% uptime on, as long as they're not dying, gives you a lot more spell damage and a lot more armor and protections. However, if you don't want to run them, there are several other skills that you can do that are all lightning intensive and are a lot of fun. Now, we did try Earthquake, and Earthquake can be set up as a full lightning skill, but unfortunately its cost of almost 70 mana and the fact that it did very little lightning damage, even when fully spec'd into lightning, and with the 40 added base lightning damage, it was barely hitting for 1000 damage, and for a 70 mana cost, it was just too intensive and we couldn't run anything else with it. So we backed out of it. The other thing that we tried was Tempest Strike with the full lightning proc side, and although Tempest Strike does hit pretty good, just getting into the melee range and not being able to hit very fast because you can't affect its attack speed just made it to where we weren't super viable. So we ended up dropping that as well. And then the last thing, if you want to use Swipe, you can also put Swipe into the mix and take the lightning side of the tree. However, if you've used it before, you do know that its lightning damage is pretty much crap and it's not super good. And again, you're in melee range, even though you get the attack speed, and even with the leech, it's not the best choice. You're better off just going with high dodge and staying out of the fight, since all of these skills are highly ranged and you'll never have to get within melee range of anything in order to actually kill it. The one other thing that you can do if you so choose, if you like minions, I recommend that you can run the 3 wolves and you can get them into the full lightning spec, since we're somewhat spec'd into minion lightning damage as well and minion spell damage. Lightning wolves, which we did not try here, could also be pretty viable. However, since your gear isn't really spec'd into minion dodge or minion health, unless you really respec differently than we did here, they're probably not going to survive super well. Alright, let's go ahead and get into passives. For passives, we have 25 points in the Primalist base class. We have 5 points in Natural Attunement, 5 points in Tempestborn, 5 points in Wisdom of the Wild, 5 points in Thornbond, and 5 points in Elder Branch. With 3 points in the Druid, we have 3 points in Blood Claws for that physical damage leech. Another 3 points in here would be optimal so that you could leech 9% of all that physical damage, which really helps keep your life full. 0 points in Beastmaster and 85 points in the Shaman. We have 8 points in Silent Protector, 8 points in Fate Carver, 5 points in Ancestral Speed. This 35% increased totem cast speed is absolutely critical for your Storm Totem. Its lightning will start proccing way faster. Like it's crazy how it affects the lightning speed, and the Thorn Totem's Thorns will also proc much faster. 10 points in Stormbringer, 5 points in Avatar of Thunder, 5 points in Protective Circle, 8 points in Ruin of Awe, 5 points in Dervish, 8 points in Elemental Shrines, 5 points in Lagoon's Answer, 8 points in Conflux, and 8 points in Ascendant Circle. Now, if you do choose to use a melee skill, I do recommend putting 5 points into Thunderstrike so that there's a chance to cast the lightning on every melee attack you do up to 40%. That teamed up with the 40% with your spellcast, which is why we have Ice Thorns proccing as much as fast as possible, is for this lightning to go off. Those two together can proc a lot of lightning and do some good damage. For items, we're going to be running spell damage with health as a 1x4. We also have increased cold damage per active totem, which isn't super important because we're not a cold damage, but you do need one that procs the Summon Thorn Totem chance, which here we have 9% chance. And then your 2x2s are going to be increased lightning damage and whatever else you can get with them. In this case, we have healing effectiveness, which isn't super huge because we're not running anything like Eddar's Blessing or Entangling Roots, but that lightning damage does help. You can also just throw in more 1x4s if that's what you already have. For the weapon, you're going to want increased spell damage and lightning damage. We also went with mana and all attributes, but you can go more defensive on the substats since you don't need mana and the all attributes isn't really a big thing. I would also recommend doing like set elemental and then another resistance like necrotic or void. For the chest pieces, these ones are going to have some of the rarer fixes. You have the spell damage, which is actually a pretty common one. It seemed to drop almost on everything we were getting. The shared spell damage with spell minion damage is huge, and then the increased totem damage. That's a big one for your storm totem, and then we got some dodge. Same with the helm. We have totem cast speed, which is a big one. You can also put that in, if you can't find the thorn or the totem damage, you can go ahead and do the cast speed as well on the chest piece because that's pretty big. And then more minion spell. Then all we ran is the 4-piece set dodge, and we went with just basically dodge on everything and then lightning damage. We also have mana regen on everything that you get on. We didn't get very high, and you don't really need the mana regen. So here we only have about tier 2, tier 3 on some of these. You don't really need much higher than that, if at all. You could just do more health or an elemental resist if you want. And then for boots, we went for some movement speed, and then we have 100% glancing blow. You can see that we put that on everything. On the gloves, you don't need the freeze rate multiplier. You'd be better off putting cast speed or something else in that category. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys some gameplay.